Hello. So I am going to share with you today 10 surprising things that happened to me when I decided to go completely vegan, plant-based. And to be completely honest, this is not the video that I would have desired to make based on that experience. I really would have loved to make a different type of video about that experience, but I really just want to be honest and transparent and share with you some of the experiences that I had, some of the good, some of the not so good, and most importantly, I want to share with you some of the things that I learned through that process. In particular, because certain things that I attempted to research, I did not really find very helpful information. And my goal with this video is to help contribute to the body of knowledge that is available on this subject that where there's clearly some missing components, especially based on my experience. So I'm going to share that with you. But before I get into that, let me just tell you a little bit about me. My name's Dr. Nicole LaShawn. I am a nurse practitioner. My background is in family medicine. Here on this channel, I talk about things related to health and wellness, nutrition, and travel. And on this channel, I am helping us as Black women to create a life that we want to live rather than the one that has been assigned to us. I definitely am passionate about health and wellness, and I believe that health is wealth. And so on here, on this platform, I really want to use this channel to just share with you ladies some valuable, informative information that I think that we can use to help, create for us a healthy lifestyle so that we can really live the best life that we desire to live. So come on in, join the family. If you haven't seen me before, welcome. Please go ahead and hit the like button before we get into it. Subscribe to the channel if you find that you're interested in this information. I would really appreciate it. You are very welcome here. Everybody is welcome, male, female. Yes, my target audience is women, but I believe that even men are valuable in helping to educate the women around them. I mean, if you have daughters, if you have sisters, this information pertains to you as well. So feel free to stick around for the information that I have here for you today. So I am going to share this experience. I guess I should start by giving you a little bit of background information with how I decided to embark upon a journey of kind of transitioning into being fully plant-based. And this actually dates back many years ago to, I was reading one of my journal entries from about probably a little over 10 years ago. And on that entry, I was writing down some of my future goals, say a 5-year goal and a 10-year goal. And I recall writing down in this journal that by the time I was 35 years old, I wanted to be fully plant-based. And I wrote down also my goal target weight or whatever it was. And primarily at the time, what I was kind of working towards, or what my goal was to just be overall healthy. I come from a family where I watched a lot of family members suffer from like chronic illness, chronic disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. And of course, at that point, I had already been a nurse for about 10 years. And I had saw a lot of the deficiencies that are involved in our healthcare system and in their ways of managing chronic illness. And I just knew in my heart and in my mind that I really didn't want to go down that route. And I really wanted to do all that I could, or all that was within my power to live a healthy lifestyle as long as possible, and do whatever I could do to prevent illness and disease. In addition to that, being a nurse and working in healthcare, I really had a lot of experience. At this point, I was actually already a nurse practitioner for over 5 years at that point. And I had managed a lot of chronic illness and chronic disease, and I really saw the impact of diet and nutrition on health. Now, I know that for you today, watching this in 2023, that's common knowledge, right? Like, that nutrition plays a role. But back in this time, over 10 years ago, there really wasn't as much evidence of the role of health and nutrition on chronic disease and illness. And in fact, a lot of the information that we were getting was wrong, right? We were told that we were needing to eat low fat, low sugar types of foods, which were all highly processed. That's a whole nother video, but just so that you understand where I'm coming from, my motivation to go plant-based wasn't really based upon like social media or based upon the current activities that are going on today, which are, I know, heavily influencing a lot of people. But this was a decision that I made years ago. All that to say, my 35th year, I was well beyond that when I finally decided to wrap around and attempt to be successful in this goal. So I was at a season and stage in my life, and this was back in 2021. My kids were all nearly grown, and I really felt that I was in a good place to implement some dietary things that just were more difficult with little kids in the house growing up, etc., snacks around. I had noticed that as they got older and older, I was able to remove certain things from my diet and from our household, and it just made it easier to eat healthier for me overall. And prior to choosing to go plant-based back in 2021, I actually pretty much had gone plant-based probably a couple months out of every year. And I feel like it really helped me with my experience back in 2021 because I did have a pretty good repertoire of meals that I was comfortable eating, that satisfied me, that made me feel full, etc. So back in 2021, when I decided to go plant-based, it wasn't that difficult. So actually, I started by just decreasing the amount of processed foods because my goal was to be healthy. And I should mention that I didn't have any health problems at all. I didn't have a desire to lose weight. I didn't have any problems as it was with my health. I was actually in very, very good health. And I really just wanted to use this opportunity to optimize my health and just to see the outcome and how things would be if I was plant-based. Could I feel even more? Could I feel even better? Would my energy levels get even better? Could I, live a longer, healthier life over the long term if I was plant-based? And so that's basically why I was doing it. It wasn't really based on any political or religious reasons for cutting out meat. And I know people do that, and that's fine. But for me, that wasn't really my motivation. I don't have any religious or other reasons to not eat meat. So back in 2021, I was already eating very healthy, I guess I would say, primarily whole foods. I had cut out most processed foods. I wasn't really consuming sugar, and that's the hard part. I think, especially being in the United States of America, if you can cut out sugar from your diet, you can do anything. I feel like the hardest thing to do dietarily is cut out sugar. So, overall was very healthy, didn't really have any issues. And as was my normal pattern, early in the year, I ended up cutting out and transitioning, getting rid of meat and dairy, etc. And that wasn't unusual for me. I, like I said, had done that sometimes a month, sometimes a couple months. This time I decided to go ahead and try and sustain it longer because I knew that my ultimate long-term goal was to be vegetarian. And so now I had to look that goal in the face because, the hands of time were not turning back. Time was going to move forward. And so it was time for me to move forward and progress towards my health goals. And so I am going to now share with you 10 surprising things that happened to me over the course of the year while I was fully plant-based. Let me open up my notes because I don't want to miss anything. So this took place over the course of about a year, from 2021 to 2022. So number one, my sleep improved significantly. And I am someone who always pretty much, I feel like, does well with sleep. So I didn't have any sleep problems per se. outside of the normal, like when I get stressed out. Of course, the sleep isn't the best. But during the time that I was fully plant based, my sleep improved, and I felt like I no longer required the 8 to 9 hours of sleep that I normally require in order to feel rested. So for me, my pattern, I am my best self when I have about 8, if not 8 to 9 hours of sleep. I do really well, and so that's my normal routine, is to plan for 8 to 9 hours. When I was fully plant-based, I realized that I felt very refreshed and rested by about 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours of sleep. And in fact, even if I wanted to try towards my normal 8 to 9, oftentimes my body woke up. It was not, it didn't need that level of rest. And so I got more hours in the day of activity during the time that I was plant-based. And I really feel like I was getting more like REM sleep, more refreshing sleep. I more easily fell into that like deep dream mode sleep at night when I went to sleep. It didn't take me like 2 hours to get fully into a deep sleep as it normally does when I'm not plant-based. And so that was one surprising thing. And in fact, like I said, I've gone plant-based before, and so I kind of knew that was one of the outcomes for me that happened when I was fully plant-based, is that my sleep got better. And so actually that's one of the hacks that I typically recommend, especially if you're struggling with sleep. I recommend sometimes just trying to be plant-based for a week or two, and typically you're going to get better sleep and feel more rested. But moving on moving on from that, number 2, one of the things that were surprising to me when I was fully plant-based was that meal prep actually became easier. Can you believe that? It was actually kind of a surprise to me that it was easier, because one of the reasons why I in the past struggled with the idea of becoming fully plant-based was the idea of food, having to figure out what to eat. It was just draining and exhausting, and I just didn't have the creative energy to do that while I was raising kids, right? And working two jobs as a nurse. But of course, okay, so back in 2021, the kids are nearly grown. I just have more time to focus on creating my meals, and actually at this season of my life, I actually had a pretty good routine of preparing my meals, and for the most part, they were very, very vegetable heavy meals that I was eating and consuming on a regular basis anyways. So when I ultimately cut out the meat, it was actually pretty easy, and it actually made life easier for me, because now I didn't have to like cook food and deal with like meat that I had to fry up and all this kind of stuff, which for me was like actually easy. I could just go and get fresh vegetables and fresh fruit and call it a meal, and that just, surprisingly enough, it actually was easier rather than more difficult, which is what I expected, And I think also because it was easier for me, because by this point I had some years, right? Some years under my belt of preparing food. And so I kind of knew more about what I liked and what I didn't like, and what portions and quantities to make, etc. And so it just overall was an easier experience for me to grab something that was quick and easy and just be able to eat it without having to do a bunch of cooking. Number 3, one of the other surprising things that happened to me while I was fully plant-based is that honestly, I felt like I was being a good person. I felt somehow like morally and ethically, as it relates to our agriculture and our food system, and I felt like I was being a good person by being plant-based, and it gave my ego a sense of pride, I guess, with being able to be plant-based, because I felt like I was helping do my due diligence as a good citizen of this world, right? Of being able to preserve some of the the efforts and the resources that go to agriculture as it relates to meat. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but So that was surprising for me, is that I did feel good about my decision to go plant-based, and I felt like it would likely be something that I could sustain long term because it was just overall easier for me. Um, the fourth thing that surprised me was that I discovered that eating low carb was just not going to be an option once I was fully plant-based. Um, Now, just backing up to remind you, I had cut out most processed foods from my diet. So when I say low carb, just think I really wasn't eating things such as like rice, white rice, pasta, white potatoes, those types of things. I really wasn't eating that anyways. So whenever I became fully plant-based, I really needed to fill up on something, right? Because if you're not eating meat, which gives you that feeling of fullness or satiety, and you're not eating those heavy processed carbs like pasta, rice, and potatoes, you have to get a sense of fullness or satiety from something. And so, yeah, I was able to fill up on, fruits and vegetables pretty much, and beans, which is one of my favorite foods anyways. But yeah, so low carb just wasn't an option. So I don't know, not to say that I was striving towards low carb, but I know that in the past, as far as my body is concerned, I typically do feel my best when I'm not eating excessive amounts of processed carbohydrates. And so I definitely wasn't going to begin incorporating those into my diet, even though I was fully plant-based, because I knew that they just, overall, I didn't feel my best self when I was consuming a lot of those things. Not to say I never do, you know what I mean? A girl has to live. A girl has to live her life. So we are gonna do some pasta here and there, But in terms of it being like my normal everyday, it just wasn't something that I did it on a regular or consistent basis, or I didn't like buy it and prepare it for myself. Number 5, it was surprising to me that I didn't crave meat. In the past, when I had gone plant-based, I did crave meat, in particular beef, because there's nothing like a cheeseburger, girl. There's nothing like a cheeseburger. But this go round, when I decided to become fully plant-based, I didn't crave meat. So it was actually pretty easy for me to sustain it for the year that I did, because I didn't really have cravings. Number 6, the thing that was surprising to me was that I really, really got to explore a wider variety of vegetables and fruits, and started to crave fruits and vegetables that I never really even thought to be desirable in the past. And I think it's because, in particular, when you're not eating sugar and salt, and the delicious flavor of meat fat, your palate just becomes more sensitive to the taste of fruits and vegetables and the textures, and it becomes really, really exciting to taste of a wide variety of vegetables and the different textures and the different colors, and begin incorporating those into meals. And so I really had a lot of fun with that, and that was definitely a season of my life where I ate the widest variety of different types of fruits and vegetables. I was going to the farmer's market every week and just really having fun with exploring different types of foods. And I think, like, the apprehensions, I don't know if I would go so far as to say fears, that I had with certain vegetables, that I just got over it, and I just really tried so many different things. And so that was fun. I wasn't intimidated, I guess you can say, by certain vegetables anymore. I didn't feel like, oh, that's gross. It was more like, that's interesting, I should try that, I wonder what that tastes like. And my palate was just loving the variety. So those are some positives, right? Those are some positive surprises. So now I'm going to share with you some of the not so positives. This is the big one. I don't know, maybe I should have saved this for last, but the big one was that I lost weight, okay? But my normal weight, I'm normally a normal healthy weight for my height. I'm 5'5", and my weight does normally fluctuate by about 10 pounds. So losing some weight is not too concerning. So I had got down about 10 pounds, and honestly, that in and of itself wasn't a huge deal because I get down 10 pounds here and there. That's pretty normal for me. But number 8, the interesting thing and the surprising thing was that the type of weight that I lost fat. Okay? I lost fat. And I realized that maybe sounds exciting for some people, especially in the way that social media talks about fat so negatively. I lost fat in ways and in places that I never expected. And so the weight that I lost was different than anything that I ever experienced. I lost the fat pads of my face, of my breasts, and of my butt. And it was really challenging because I didn't look like myself. I didn't feel comfortable looking in the mirror. It was really, really a struggle. I started to kind of research what was going on because when I lost the weight, I had been plant-based for about 8 months. So the weight did not come off gradually. It was actually pretty sudden and unexpected. Now, it would have been different if I was like losing half a pound of fat. But literally, I felt like the weight came off overnight. And I actually remember the date on the calendar because I said, this can't be real. This can't be real. How did you wake up, go to sleep one day, looking like one thing and wake up the next day looking completely different? Now, maybe it was more gradual, but for me, when I saw it in the mirror, I saw it. And I remember that exact date on the calendar. And that was extremely difficult. It was extremely difficult because, again, I didn't go into this to lose weight. I lose weight here and there. That's natural and that's normal for us as women to lose weight. But the type of weight that I lost, it was difficult. And I started doing more research, and I started to get into the boxes of these vegans and these plant-based people who are online, and I would just try and read information to see what was going on and if any of them had experienced this before, because it became very concerning to me to be in this place. In fact, it had gotten so the mental toll that it takes on you to lose your breasts. I don't know how to even articulate it. I started to have nightmares. Let me just be honest with you. I would wake up in the night because I would have a nightmare or a dream, and I would grab my breasts where my breasts were before and not feel anything. And I would cry. I couldn't fit my clothes anymore. I couldn't fit my bras. Me, a grown woman. I could not fit into my bras. It was challenging. Now, let me just say this. The weight loss wasn't so dramatic that I think it would have been extremely recognizable to casual in passing casually. Really, the weight that I lost was an intimate type of weight. It was an intimate type of weight. So only people who knew me intimately would probably have recognized the level of weight loss, including me, right? This is my intimate weight that I'm most connected to. And you may not know this, but having certain aspects of your body do bring a level of comfort. And when that suddenly disappears, it's really disjarring. I don't know how to explain that, but I really developed a high regard for women and people in general, in particular women who have lost their breasts through breast cancer or who have gone through body changes, because the impact that it can take on your mental health, it was scary for me, let me just be honest. And so when I started to lose the weight, of course, I started to get concerned and I started to research and I went to the doctor, right? Because I'm like, what is wrong? I was eating tons and tons of food. And maybe at this point in hindsight, maybe I was under eating, right? Because no matter how many greens and carrots, I mean, they just don't have a lot of calories. So maybe I was under eating, but, I was pretty diligent with regard to researching, being aware. I was taking my vitamins, I was exercising, I was drinking water. Otherwise, I felt well. My energy levels were good. But my fat was disappearing. And surprisingly enough, that was kind of scary because my fat, I realize now that I need it to feel like who I am. Like, it comforts me and it protects my bones. And it helps me to feel warm and fluffy at night when I go to sleep. So I actually did some lab tests. And so I went and I did like a vitamin panel for vegetarians because I was like, maybe I'm malnourished, even though I was taking all the vitamins. I was being very responsible with this. Let me just tell you, I didn't go into this haphazardly, so that you're aware. So it's not like I was just being irresponsible in my approach to being plant-based, for anyone who's going to get into the comments and tell me all the things that I did wrong. So I was very, very particular and disciplined in, I was watching my macronutrients and my micronutrients and eating well. Okay, I was eating very, very well. And so I went in and I did some panels and I found, I'll just tell you some of the labs I did. I did my thyroid function, my T3, T4, homocysteine, calcium, CBC, iron levels, ferritin, vitamin B12, folate, potassiums, vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, and everything was normal. Everything was normal. Despite everything being normal, everything wasn't normal inside, right? So, with that being said, I really, really struggled with where I was at because I was like, did I do something wrong? Did I somehow damage myself? Is this irreversible? Because I did, start to try and gain weight. I really started bulking up on my caloric intake, my plant-based caloric intake, and after several months of realizing that that wasn't going to work, I did have to start reintroducing meat into my diet. And actually back then I started using collagen. There was all kinds of things that I did to attempt to gain weight before reintroducing meat, and it just didn't work. And so I ultimately started working on trying to gain weight. But number 9, one of the surprising things that I discovered was that I felt very frail when I lost my fat and I was down to that weight. And it's the reason why I want to emphasize fat is because there is different types of weight that we can lose. We can lose like muscle, you can lose, water weight, and I'm specifically talking about fat because I realized the importance of having fat, right? Like, in fact, it was during that season that when I was 10 pounds down from the weight I am today, that I would look at these women, very large women, and I was so jealous. And I was like, if only she could give me 10 pounds of her fat, I would be happy. Because, man, the way that I really, really admired the beauty of larger women, it magnified times 100 after being plant-based, because I really love now a robust, fully built body. And all body types, our body types, we don't always have control over it, but definitely the way that I really appreciate the beauty of a larger woman is significantly enhanced, especially when I was, smaller and struggling to gain some fat, because it wasn't an easy place to be. So, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Let me just say that to any of you who are trying to maybe lose weight, or you feel like you have too much. The grass is not always greener on the other side. And number 10, I guess the last to close, because it's kind of getting long, the last thing that I really, really learned was that it was a struggle to put my weight back on, and it was slow, and it took time, and it took effort, and it took a year. Yes, an entire year for me to put the weight back on. And I tried a lot of different things, but ultimately my body said, we're not gonna be vegan. We're not gonna be fully plant-based. We need some meat. And so I had to honor that. And so, what did I learn? I learned that it's really, really important to be willing to honor what your body needs over what maybe you think you might want for yourself. And I'm so glad that I didn't go out announcing that I'm fully plant-based and start a business, and you know what I mean? How embarrassing would that have been for me to build this whole life around this idea that I'm plant-based? Because I could have, I was tempted to, I'm gonna be honest with you. And that's why now too, I really don't prescribe certain types of diets. I do health coaching and health consulting, and I am not the type of person to prescribe a certain type of certain type of diet for you. I feel like if you desire to cut out certain things, I will definitely guide you and make recommendations, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's your body. I can't be 100% sure how your body is going to respond to certain things, and you may not even know until you embark upon that journey for yourself. But I think that's the beautiful thing about this life, is that we get the opportunity to explore, to experience, and to try different things. And also that if they don't work out, that we get to recalibrate. Hopefully, if the thing that we tried wasn't permanent, right? Because sometimes we get to that place that we are aspiring to get to, and when we're there, we realize it's not what's best for us, So, I just wanted to share that experience with you all, and I hope that you find it helpful. But, I hope that you learned something, or if you've kind of maybe done some different things with your diet, why don't you share them with me? Are there any things that you have been surprised about? I think it's just so important for us to listen to our bodies and to honor what our body requires, rather than trying to meet other people's standards. And so I hope that you find that information is helpful. I hope that you find that it's valuable, and that hopefully it'll contribute to the body of knowledge that we have available. And certain things work for certain people and other things don't. So that is it for today. Thank you for joining me for this information kind of story time. And I'll see you next time. Bye.